Okay, so I want to tell you a story about a patient who was doing absolutely everything right. I mean, he was hitting the gym, he was eating clean, but his body was telling a completely different and pretty scary story. It's a medical mystery that all started with a single, very alarming number. I mean, look at this. On paper, the man was a model of health, hitting the gym 5 times a week, no junk food, he was even sleeping better. But his body? His body was in a state of crisis. His blood pressure was 158 over 100. And that, my friends, is deep in the danger zone. All that effort was there, but the results were actually going backwards. It just didn't make any sense, right? All that hard work, all those quote unquote right choices. And yet his health was heading straight for a cliff. So, what on earth went wrong? Let's dig in and solve this thing together.
All right, so let's officially set the scene for this baffling case. The mystery of some seriously stubborn high blood pressure in a patient who, by all accounts, should have been the picture of health.
And just get a load of his commitment level. He was already on medication prescribed by his doctor. He was in the gym 5 times a week, like clockwork. He'd completely ditched all the ultra processed junk food, and he was even actively managing his stress and his sleep. I mean, he was doing everything he was asked to do and then some. So, to crack this case, we had to go full on detective. We had him write down everything, every meal, every snack, every single drink for a whole week. And that's where we found it. The first big clue, hiding in plain sight in his supposedly healthy diet. His day would start with what looks like the perfect health kick, doesn't it? A big smoothie packed with banana, mango, some fruit juice, and, a little honey for some natural sweetness. Seems totally harmless. Then, a little later, he'd grab one of those natural health drinks from the store. You know the ones I'm talking about. They say no added sugar and have all these bright, happy pictures of fruit on the label. They're practically screaming, I'm the healthy choice. For breakfast, with his porridge, he'd swapped out regular syrup for agave. Smart, right? He'd read that it was low GI, which is just a fancy way of saying it wouldn't spike his blood sugar as much. So he thought, hey, this is a better choice. Another seemingly health-conscious decision. And then, boom, in the afternoon, another smoothie hits the system, again with a little extra honey, because, well, it just feels healthier than regular white sugar. And you see, the problem wasn't any single one of these choices. It was the buildup, the cumulative effect of all of them, day in and day out. And this, right here, was the heart of the entire problem. In his genuine, sincere effort to be healthier, he had accidentally flooded his body with more of a specific type of sugar, fructose, than ever before. He'd swapped out the obvious junk food for a hidden sugar trap. So how in the world could these natural sugars be so bad for his blood pressure? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, and it's all in the science of how our bodies handle a very specific type of sugar, fructose. Now, most of us think sugar is just sugar, but it's really not that simple. It's mostly made of two parts. You've got glucose, which is great stuff. It's fuel for basically every cell in your body. But then you've got fructose, and fructose is a totally different beast. It gets processed almost entirely in your liver, where it acts a lot more like alcohol than it does like regular sugar. So, when the liver gets slammed with way too much fructose, like from all those juices and smoothies, a really dangerous chain reaction kicks off. First, the liver just gets overwhelmed. Second, it's forced to turn all that extra fructose into fat and a waste product called uric acid. Third, and this is the key part, that uric acid basically flips a switch and shuts off something called nitric oxide, which is the molecule that tells your blood vessels to chill out and relax. And finally, without that relax signal, your blood vessels tighten up, they constrict, and your blood pressure just shoots through the roof. But hang on a second, isn't fruit supposed to be good for you? Yes, 100%. But how you eat it makes all the difference in the world. See, whole fruit has fiber, and you can think of that fiber as like a bouncer at a nightclub for your liver. It controls the flow, letting the fructose in slowly so the liver can handle it. But when you make a smoothie, you pulverize that fiber. It's destroyed. So now you're sending a massive, concentrated fructose bomb straight to your liver with no bouncer in sight. Eating an apple and drinking an apple are two completely different things to your body. But here's the thing. The high fructose diet, that was only half the story. There was another problem lurking in his daily routine, a babe twist in the case that was basically pouring gasoline on the fire. Let's just walk through his day. He's at his desk, sitting at 8 a.m. Has lunch at his desk, sitting. Afternoon meetings, you guessed it, sitting.
Then, at 5 p.m., he crushes it at the gym, which is awesome. But then he goes home, has dinner, sitting down, and relaxes on the couch. So when we actually did the math, outside of that 1 hour at the gym, he was sitting for about 10 hours every single day. And here is the real kicker. When you sit for that long, your body starts to become insulin resistant. It's like your cells stop listening to the signal to manage blood sugar, which keeps your insulin levels chronically high. And this is the piece of the puzzle most of us miss. That 1 hour of intense exercise doesn't just put a protective shield over the other 23 hours of the day. The gym wasn't canceling out the chair. In fact, these two problems, the river of fructose and the mountain of sitting, were compounding each other. They were creating the absolute perfect storm for high blood pressure. So once we finally understood the real issues, the solution was actually, believe it or not, incredibly simple. No more medication, no crazy new diets, just two very specific, targeted changes. The fix really just boiled down to two things. First, for that liquid fructose problem, the solution was to just swap it all out for whole foods. Simple rule: eat the fruit, don't drink it, and treat honey and agave just like regular sugar. Second, for the prolonged sitting problem, the fix was frequent movement. We're not talking about more gym time, just simply breaking up the sitting every hour or so with a quick walk or a few stretches. And the result of these two simple changes? It was absolutely astonishing. Just look at this. Before, his blood pressure was dangerously high, and that was while he was on medication. After just a few weeks of these new habits, it dropped into the 130s, and he was able to come off his medication completely. You know, this patient's story really shines a light on a much bigger issue. The problem often isn't that people aren't trying hard enough. The real problem is often the quality of the information we're all working with. And this, right here, is the most important takeaway from all of this. The problem was never his effort, not for a second. He was doing exactly what the health food industry and marketing tells us to do every single day. The problem was the information itself. He wasn't failing the plan was failing him. And that brings us to the final and most critical question. A question for you to really think about. Take a look at your own diet, your own habits. Are the healthy foods and drinks that you've chosen, are they actually helping you, or could they be secretly hijacking your health?